Hello, instructors and leads. Thank you so much for joining me today. Our intention today is to give you kind of the step two piece to understanding and using your exact path. I would love to be there in person with you guys today, but I think one of the best things about having a recorded session is that you can kind of go back and forth to it on demand whenever you need it. And so I talked with your district leaders, and they thought that this would be a great way for you to have something to use as a resource so that you can kind of move forward into the next step and the next piece of instruction for your students in using ExactPath. So, what we're going to look at today is we're going to talk about the actual learning path. So, you guys have already used and completed diagnostics for most of your students. Some of you are beginning to use your learning paths, but we have a little bit more of a lag in terms of using the learning path. So I just want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable using those processes and procedures, and that you know where to find what it is that you need to make sure that learning is happening for students. So to begin with, I just want to take a second and let you know a little bit about me. I have met several of you, but if I have not met you in person yet, I just want to take a second to introduce myself. My name is Leslie Ledford. I am your customer success manager. That means that I am your learning partner. Essentially, they used to call us educational consultants, meaning that we are here to help the educators, the district leaders, the teachers, the principals, all the folks within your school district to utilize these programs in a way that is most effective for the students inside your school district. So just to tell you a little bit about me, I have a little over 19 years of experience in public education. I was an executive director for a school district in North Carolina just right before I joined Edmentum this past year in May. I was a longtime Edmentum user. Study Island was our first resource that we used in our school district, and I was using that back in the early aughts, as we like to say. So for about 15 years or so, Cherokee County Schools have been using Edmentum products, and so I use them both as a teacher, as a principal, as an instructional leader, and then, of course, as the executive director. We then moved on into using courseware and ExactPath. I love these programs and how they built our capacity as a school district to meet our students' needs. And so I want to share with you the things that I did as a leader to help inspire students and help our teachers to use what they needed to drive instruction. So today, what we are going to really focus on in this session is just making sure that you feel comfortable navigating this program, that you have created your classes, that you understand how to utilize those classes to drive your instruction, that you can go back and look at your diagnostic results, utilize those to help inform you as an instructor about the areas that you can best meet the needs of students. And then most importantly, we want to understand and help you access the students' learning paths, see where you are as an instructor in terms of using those learning paths, and then, of course, be able to prepare your students to use their learning path when they log into their own accounts. So these are our objectives today. If there's anything else that I need to cover with you guys on a future recording or maybe a future in-person session, that would be wonderful. You can just let me know and follow up with an email, and I'll be happy to share more information with you. So to begin with, I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of the intention of the way that we set up ExactPath. So to begin with, ExactPath is that diagnostic assessment. It is a way for you to be sure that you understand where a student is when they enter your classroom this year, so that you can take that information and adapt what you do in the classroom to meet their needs. And then we couple that with basically a learn and grow process that we call a learning path. So again, it's their exact path based on the questions and responses that they answer in their diagnostic. Exact path is going to put them into the program based on their individual needs. So those two things together create this exact path so that students can be prepared and students can learn and grow at a level that meets their individual need. So thinking about that a little bit more, this is kind of the student's journey. So you have this diagnose piece that has already been accomplished for several of your students. If it has not, there are still some diagnostic windows open for the rest of this school year. So do not feel like it's too late for you to get started with this. I like to say it's never too late for a student to learn, and it's never too late for an instructor to find a great new tool. So this diagnose part, if you have not already completed this, you can certainly continue on and start with the diagnostic before we head into the learning path. But most of your students were outside of a diagnostic window, and they do have a learning path available to them, even if they haven't completed the diagnostic. So right now we are in this learning path section where you're going to be working to accelerate your instruction with these automatically created individualized learning paths that are going to help your students to meet their targeted growth. So students who are, maybe struggling with a concept and are maybe below grade level in that concept. And as you guys know, when we think about our why for this school year, the school district, our students are not basically about between 60 and 65% of our students we know are a little bit behind. Either they're not on grade level or they're as much as 1.5 or 2 years behind grade level. So we really need to provide them with some resources to kind of raise them up, to scaffold them up so that they have what they need and they can learn and grow. Now, once they've started with these learning paths, you will then be able to basically monitor their progress. So this is your progress monitoring tool where you can look at, assess, and teach students based on the needs that they have. And then with that information, reflect and act on the next steps that you need to take within the classroom or in their small group instruction or in their pull-out instruction with maybe those of you who are special education teachers. So again, we're focusing right now on this accessing the learning path, making sure that every student is in here using the learning path as it's available for the students in your school district. So starting off, I just want to make sure that we understand what we call the dosage, how much of your time students should be spending in order to really hit the gains that our research is showing is possible for students based on our ESSA Tier 2 research evidence. So 40 minutes per week per subject is the ideal amount of time for a student to spend on their learning paths to get the most gains. We also like to talk about this. 8 is great. 8 skills that students have actually not necessarily even mastered, but students have accomplished the learning within 8 skills in their learning path. This is showing that 8 skills per semester is driving student growth. Students are growing as much as 8 to 19 points of growth on their proficiency. So, if I entered as 52 in the 52nd percentile, you can anticipate that I will gain at least up to the 60th percentile, or, maybe I'm entering at the 38th percentile. I could grow as much as the 42nd percentile, or even in the 48th percentile. Year over year, that type of growth is an incredible asset for you as a school district and for your students. To get them out of that hole and into a place where they can succeed is going to be the biggest advantage that you have in using this program. Now, this is for Tier 1. We're not talking about just your Tier 2 students, your students that need really, extra support and intentional support that you're serving in their small groups. This is for every single student, Tier 1 tier 2 students, and eventually even for your tier 3 students who need that really additional layer of support. We have additional resources for that we can talk to your districts about, but this is really designed for those students, those 60 to 65% of your students who are not meeting their growth goals, and then the other remaining, 30%, 25% of students who are meeting their grade level goals. This is going to help those students to move forward, excel, and grow. So even your students who are on the gifted spectrum, these are students who can get into this learning path, start on a learning path, and excel, go beyond their grade level, get the resources that they need. Exact Path is a K-12 program. So there are resources in there for students who are behind in grade level, and there are resources for students who are excelling. When I was working in my school district, I worked with our gifted students as their director. And in that program, I would often see maybe a 5th grade math student working on 7th and 8th grade math skills, even some of them 10th grade level skills, as they were pushing beyond the boundaries of their classroom. This is a tool for you as teachers to help make sure that you have exactly what you need to drive student growth, no matter if they're below those growth levels or well above. So again, as I was talking about, this is really about your universal screener. Notice here your personalized learning for every student, no matter where they are on the spectrum. Students can grow by more than one grade level within this basic tier 1 structure. In tier 2, your small group instruction and your need to look at data and reports, and then to really assess and teach students who are 1.5 to 2 grade levels behind. This is a resource to help pull students out of that gap, pull them out of that hole that, COVID and disparate proportions of our population not having what they needed over time, and you as teachers kind of struggling to find those resources. This is the resource. This is what you can use to help drive your instruction. So again, just some takeaways. I want you to know that students exceed typical growth when they meet those 8 is great skills per semester. You can maximize your intervention by pairing with your small groups and your individual instruction, your high impact tutoring that you have as a district. And then again, our evidence is showing up to 19 percentile points. I just can't stress that enough. As a former accountability director, that just kind of makes me want to sing. So that type of growth over time means that we can take our elementary students being well prepared by the time they leave our middle school into the high school, and our high school students catching them up so that they can be productive citizens, so that they can have what they need to be able to move out and join our workforce at a level that they're prepared to learn and grow. All right. So the other thing about this, and I think it's important that we touch on the fact that participating in Edmentum's programs really removes the stigma from this idea of remediation, that, oh, I'm in the group that's well below grade level, so I've got to go over here and sit in my small group and work. No, everybody's a part of their small group. Everybody's a part of working. You do not have to pull students from the classroom to make this work. They can all work on this program together within the walls of your classroom, or when they go out to their small group supports, or I hope within the station rotation of your very own classroom. What they see on the screen is going to be very similar to what every other student sees on their screen. It's going to be developmentally appropriate, whether they're elementary, middle, or high school. And that content is going to fit the student's need no matter where they are in terms of their progress toward grade level goals. All right, so taking this a little step further, we're going to talk about your models for daily instruction. I think it's so important that we don't just talk about what you can do, but we give you some examples. So for example, what we were talking about before with your station rotation model, this is definitely something that is primarily used in elementary settings, But guys, what we do in elementary works so very well for middle and high school. So I highly encourage station rotation no matter what grade level you are serving. But this is the type of model where within your classroom, you schedule some time for your instruction, you schedule time for independent work, and students are just kind of moving through these different sections of what's happening in your classroom all at the same time. Yes, you may do some instructional time where everybody is involved in kind of, the demonstration of the lesson and the information that you want to cover for your standards for that day. But after you do that, students can really work through this. And this online learning piece can be something that's either, something they're doing independently, they're simply working online. You might have them in small group learning sessions. You guys know how to do this very well in your classrooms. And so just thinking about using like 40 minutes, we're not talking about breaking off your class and stopping it and saying, hey, okay, it's 40 minutes of instructional time. This is something that you want to embed in the dynamics of the way that you host your classroom. This is kind of a chart to give you an idea about how you might break this up, your station, your learning path, station, small group, moving through this process, seeing how with your core instructional group, you can make this work within a 60-minute learning session for students. And then finally, because it matters, we are highly correlated to your Tennessee TCAP. So I think it's really important for you to understand that in your classrooms, the work that you do in ExactPath is going to drive growth on those state assessments. Our research is showing that correlation, so you can feel comfortable knowing that the work that they're doing is really moving them toward the goals that you have for those end of grade and end of semester exams. All right, so you guys have already completed your diagnostic, but I do want to take a few minutes just to look at a student summary report. I'm going to dive into the program now and kind of pull some different things up for you so you can see. But the student summary report is just a really dynamic, powerful tool for a teacher. And so I want you to know where to find it. So I'm going to exit out of my presentation for a second, and I'm going to log in. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to be signing in as an instructor. And so I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is a demo. Essentially, it's not great, not super great information, but it does have the pieces and the directions and what you will need. So I just want to preface that by saying once you have your own information in here, you're going to have much better data than what you'll see on my side. But again, like I said, this will suffice for now to get us where we need to be. So to begin with, when I log in, I'm going to see, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of let you see what we can look at. Now, again, this is my demo. When you sign in this home, you'll be able to change the classes that you have created, the subject areas that you're looking for, and whether you want to look at just this week, maybe this and last week, or maybe expand your time to the last 30 days, just to kind of get a snapshot of where students are in their progress. Now, at the top of the page, let me give you some orientation. I know when I first introduced this to my teachers, it was a little confusing for me, and it was a little confusing for them where they find all of their information. So this very top black bar is kind of your navigation piece. This is going to take you home to the Edmentum Sensei. This is likely when you very first sign in, this is what you're going to see. So in the Edmentum Sensei, you're going to navigate over to ExactPath and click there. That is then going to take you to the window that I was just in when I signed in as the teacher. And my default is this second level, this second layer of navigation buttons. So I have Edmentum, exact path pulled up. My classes, this is going to be my home screen, just what comes up no matter when I log in. This is the first place that I'm going to go. In my classes, this is really going to focus on my groups. If I have groups assigned for students, the assignments that I have created for students, notice that I've got some things in here that are happening. I can look at active assignments, past assignments, archived assignments, and here again, I can choose between my different classes. So right now it's looking at my K2. If I wanted to look at my middle school, I could go in there and see what's going on here. For those of you who cover various grade levels, this is very supportive. And for those of you who cover multiple class sessions, this is very helpful. I can also set up challenges. Highly recommend you consider doing some challenges with active and past challenges. I'm going to share some information about that a little bit later on when we talk about our Edmentum learning communities. But this is a session that I could cover for you guys as well, talking about how to set up challenges, what might work well for your students, and even how we as Edmentum can help support you in making those challenges work. And then finally, we can manage our classes. So in this space is a place that if I want to, and if you guys have not created your classes, this is definitely something that we want to do. We can go ahead and start managing our classes. Right here, you see create a class. You see the classes that I have created, the ability to edit or delete these different classes based on my current need. If I am, and I am in this situation as an administrator, I can shift between my different teachers and see what's going on. But for you, for most of you, you're just going to see simply your class. And then maybe if a teacher shares, if they create a class, notice right here, if I edit this K2, there are other instructors. So if I want to co-teach, or if I know that this is my main classroom and I have a special education teacher that's supporting me, or I have an AIG teacher who is supporting me, an academically gifted teacher who is supporting me. I have other instructors in my grade level that we might want to share some content with. You can certainly do that. Also, if we need to switch between locations, if I'm a teacher in multiple locations, I can set that up, my grades, and then my easy login process for students. That's something, because you guys are integrated, you probably will not need access to, but you certainly can utilize that if at some point that becomes a need for you. But I just wanted you to see kind of where that is. And then down here at the bottom, selecting students. This is where you can go and add additional students into your class and or remove students from your class. So every once in a while, and I've had a few situations where I have maybe MTSS groups. So maybe I have set up my MTSS class roster, and students kind of come and go from that particular class. If I wanted to add students in or remove students, I can even remove all of them at the same time if I need to. And then finally, down here at the bottom, any progress or any changes that I've made, I just want to make sure to save that information. And that, in essence, is how you are going to manage your classes. So again, let me give you breadcrumbs. We're going to start from the home screen that you get into once you have entered through Edmentum Sensei. We're going to go to My Classes, and then Manage Classes is going to allow you to create either a new class or edit the classes that you currently have. I do recommend that you consider a naming convention for your classes so that it can help you stay organized, but you can simply speak with your principal or your directors to see what naming convention is most appropriate for you in terms of organizing your classes. Now then, this is just simply how we put kids into groups, how we group them, and how we understand what they're doing within our content. Now, if I'm an elementary teacher, likely I'm going to be covering math, reading, and language arts. However, if I'm a middle or high school teacher, I may only be covering one or another section of that. However, the students that you have, if they're working in other areas, you will be able to see that information as well. And so I'm going to start off with math and just look at my math overview. So in this screen, this is where I start to see how students are progressing both in their learning paths and in the diagnostics that they just took. So before we jumped into this, I was telling you that I wanted you to see the students' diagnostics. I wanted you to be able to look at and see their results. So in the diagnostic, I can see the scheduling, what's coming up. Notice that I have a window. I'm in window 3, and that window is closed. So it was a span of time. You can see what that testing window is. If I need a student to come in and take a diagnostic, it will be the responsibility of you as the teacher to reach out to your account administrator. That might be your principal, it might be the instructional coach, or it may be a district leader who has set these diagnostic windows. You guys are going to need to discuss with one another the structure of your account management so that you will know who to contact in case you do need to adjust and or check on the progress of any of these particular windows to I guess basically look at how they're doing. But the next thing that you can do in the testing window is I can look for my class results. Now notice again, I have kind of a default class that this is going to, and I have a default testing window. However, I might want to go back to test window 2 or test window 1 and look at my class results. And you'll notice here that I've got my class averages. How students performed in window 1, window 2, and then in window 3. The average growth between these different diagnostic windows. There was a lot of growth here. Again, I'm going to emphasize this is demo, so these things, kind of fluctuate up and down, but you can see how many students took the assessment. And then notice in my window 3, I only have one student to take that assessment. So that window must have been a little off for my demo. If you saw this in like a real world scenario, you would definitely want to check to see why only one of the 10 students who originally took the diagnostic ended up taking the third diagnostic. I will say that for you, even as students kind of move in and out, so say you're an MTSS group or you're a special education group of teachers looking at this information, if students are moving in and out of your course, you still want those students to complete diagnostics because those students' diagnostics are showing the school over time how those students are performing, and we definitely want them to have access to that. Now, notice here that I've got an average score. I've got kind of a measure between top score and bottom score of the students who took within that window. I can continue to scroll down, and this piece I really love because this takes and shows you the comparison over time of how students are moving, those who are below and approaching, those who are meeting and exceeding, and kind of what is happening with the students' progress as they move through. I can also continue to scroll down and find a detailed class breakdown. So this detailed breakdown is showing me how students perform their learning path entry grade by domain. Okay, so again, my domains are up here, showing each of the domains for the grade level, the grade band that I'm looking at. Let me switch this to a middle school for right now because it'll just give us a little bit more information and data there. So if we're seeing this, how students are progressing, again, I can start to see how they're moving over time. I can see their scale score being in the range of the Edmentum diagnostic scale, again, covering kindergarten all the way to 12th grade content, showing how they fit along that scale. Their national percentile rank. This is a good measure for thinking about if you're looking at percentiles for students, so where they're falling within the grade band and how they're progressing. And then each student individually, I can see what their learning path entry grade was. So again, for this particular student who is a 6th grade student, their entry at grade level 5 for each of these domains, grade level 6 for this domain, and then grade level 4, showing you that there's a little bit more of a struggle in this particular fraction and ratio domain. If it's NA, it's just showing that maybe that content was not covered in that particular diagnostic, or it may not even be something that's covered within that grade band, but just letting you know where students are. This also shows you the lowest grade level that they entered. So here I'm looking at a group of middle school students, but I'm seeing several kindergarten level entry, seeing some 3rd grade level entry. This tells me as an instructor that I've got some students who are really struggling in some of my content domain areas. These are things that I need to be aware of as an instructor, how far behind the students are. And it's very interesting to me when you see a student like Haley here, where they do have some grade level entry, but then they also have some significant deficits, a couple of grade levels, even 3 grade levels behind in their algebra and expressions. This again is going to help me as a teacher. So let me drill into Haley just a little bit more, again, showing you kind of their diagnostic, the information that you can find, the really supportive information that you can find as a teacher. Now notice again, I'm in here looking at Haley's information. I am in an overview and I'm looking at test window 3, which is not showing me a lot of information because she has not taken this. So let me drill back into the math. That's what I was wanting to look at. And again, remember test window 3 was not taken. So we want to look at test window 2. That's what we were just looking at on the previous screen. I can see that she is in the 45th percentile. And all of a sudden, now that I've looked at that information, that 45th percentile makes a lot more sense to me. She has some grade level skills, but she's struggling in some others. So she's going to be below the average in terms of where she is in hitting those goals. Another piece of the puzzle here that is really great is this is her diagnostic test. If you're the teacher, notice how I can follow each of these check and X marks, showing me specific skills that Haley has accomplished and how she did on them. And then another thing that I love about the way this shows is it shows kind of how the diagnostic begins to level out over time. And you find that level of where the student actually is in respect to their ability to score proficient on these particular skills. So notice that these last few skills, I'm kind of hovering between a 4th, 5th, 6th grade level skills. And that's where Haley lands on the spectrum of her diagnostic. If I continue down into the individual student, I can expand all of these areas. Or if I knew, oh goodness, she's really struggled with measurement and data, I can see specific skill levels that she struggled with. She was struggling not just at her grade level, which is 6th grade, she was struggling with all of these 4th grade level skills too. So that's really helpful for me as a teacher to know not only is it measurement and data, these are very specific pieces of the puzzle. I can see those standards if I click in and see what exactly is being covered and why, get a better picture of why she is struggling in those particular areas. I could also just expand all of these and see how the student is doing and how they're progressing in each of the question areas that they answered. Now, I do want you to notice there were several questions on this diagnostic. The diagnostic question, total number of items, 49, is variable. It is not the same for every single student. It's going to be based on their responses to the test. So I would encourage you, and notice her total test time was 65 minutes. I would encourage you to break the diagnostic into smaller chunks and smaller sessions so that students can essentially really focus in on what is working for them and the best that they can do on the diagnostic. Students need to understand they're not going to get everything correct, and that can be very frustrating for some students. So kind of limiting the amount of time that they spend on a diagnostic when they're taking it, maybe 30 minutes or so, 20, 30 minutes or so a day until they complete the diagnostic is potentially a better approach than setting everybody down on one day and trying to complete the diagnostic in a particular window. That can get very frustrating for some students. And so again, a best practice is to break that up over time to make sure that students perform the best that they can on their diagnostic results, and so that it's the best reflection of what they know. Now, as a teacher, it is sometimes really helpful to understand, is there something about a student's reading skills that is making it more difficult for them in math? Is there something that is a struggle for them in this particular area that maybe could leverage, or it could help me have a conversation with other teachers that I work with to see how I can best support this student? Again, you notice here under reading, I've got, a lower percentile rank. So she struggled a little more in this particular area. It took her a little longer to take this assessment. You can see those different domains again, looking at how she performs on the domains and what areas she has strengths and what areas she has weaknesses. Again, we want to capitalize on those strengths as much as we want to understand those weaknesses. And then finally, in the language arts domain, we see that she's around the same place she was for math, so a little higher comprehension level in the language arts piece, starting her kind of lower and raising her up over time to make sure that she is best prepared to meet the needs and the goals of this particular grade level. So if you had not had a chance to really look at your diagnostics, I hope that this gives you a better glimpse of that information, prepares you a little bit more to utilize this information to support students' learning needs and your learning needs as an instructor. So again, looking at these different pieces of the puzzle, oops, I went through that really quick. We looked at that diagnostic. Now we're going to move back into the learning path. So let's talk just a little bit. What is the student's learning path? So what does that instruction look like? Essentially, students are going to get into a curriculum embedded form of assessment that's going to give them some learning opportunities in this lesson. So they'll start here with a lesson. They'll then move into practicing what they learned in the lesson. So some question answer responses that they're going to have in their learning path. And then they're going to get a progress check. This progress check is just a quick 5-question assessment. It's going to assess only one skill. We're not talking about a whole standard, a skill within that standard at a time. And their responses are going to be scored. And then the program will adapt their learning path based on the responses that they have. So we talked a little bit, and I already showed you a piece about how to manage your classes, but I just want to remind you, in order to really get going on these learning paths, it's going to be important that you create your classes. So creating those classes is going to give you the type of scenario that you need, or the type of grouping that you need to best meet your students' needs and best drive their instruction. So again, just very quickly, I'm going to go back in here again. Let's reorient ourselves in the program. Notice I'm here looking at a specific group. So I'm actually going to close out of this tab. I'm going to get back to my orientation, go home, so that I understand where I am in the program. I think it's really important that we understand how to orient ourselves within the program. And if I'm going to manage my classes, I'm going to go to my classes, and then I'm going to go all the way over here to the end to manage those classes. and I'm either going to create or edit classes that I have existing to make sure that they're set up correctly. Now, there are student settings in the learning path that are important to keep in mind for students as they're working through this process. So again, notice I've got my students. I've got, I want to go to my middle school again. I apologize. I need to keep switching back and forth on you. But in the learning path, I see the students that we were just checking on. Notice Haley that I was in the class, or I was in her diagnostic information. Her system grade is sixth grade. And here I am checking that her information for grades 6 through 12 only, or for grades 7 through 12 only, including all those skills and remediation, or I can check that I want her to have all of those grades available. So if they want to, if you want to hide the calculator for students, you can certainly do that. I don't really recommend that you do that, but it's available to you if you need to do that. Under their diagnostic, if you need to enable text-to-speech in your classroom where you manage your classroom, that's where you go to manage your text-to-speech. Maybe you want everybody to have text-to-speech. Maybe you do not want everybody to have text-to-speech. So within here, these are all set to a default level, and so it's already passed here for this student, so I can't change it. But here they're still open, so I can certainly change, and I can select everyone, unselect everyone. I can select just one student at a time. I can give a starting grade level. Let's say that I know that Ari is coming in significantly behind grade level. Maybe I actually want to start his diagnostic on a little bit lower level so that he can get some success and not so discouraged. I can certainly change that. By default, it is going to start the students on the grade level that is listed in their system grade. Okay. Now then, I'm actually going to, I'm not going to save those changes. These are just updates that we can do. So I'm going to say I'm okay with not saving my changes that I've made. Now the other thing that I can do in reports is I can show student summary report in the student account. So if I want students to be able to see these summary reports, and then I can also share them for families. So if I have family accounts added to these students that I want to give some progress reports, those of you who are special education teachers, this is a big help. All of this information, I know I'm going over this content pretty quickly, but all of this information is available for you up here in the Help Center under the teacher resources. So the exact learning support. You're going to be able to go in here and find exactly what you need. There's even a, begin here, a quick start for instructors. Anything that you need to know or that I covered maybe a little too quickly with today, you can go back to this help screen and find almost everything up here is available for print. If you're looking at what we were just talking about, managing your account and your classes, classroom management, student settings, that's what we're looking at right now. So again, you're going to have this video to go back to, but if any time you're more of a give me the steps on a sheet of paper kind of person, this is going to be available for you as well. Okay, so now then I want to go back into the program, and I'm going to get back into my presentation just a minute, just to kind of move us forward, to talk a little bit about what we were discussing with those developmentally appropriate interfaces. So each of your students are going to have a different type of interface depending on their grade level. Your 6 through 12 students are going to have a more mature interface, something that if you guys and you are at Brown County, you are familiar with courseware. And so the way that courseware content looks, you're going to be a little more familiar with that information. So here you can look at what the grade 6 through 12 interface is going to look like. The grade 3 through 5, of course, has some additional navigation buttons and things that your grade K2 will not have, because your K2 is going to be a very simplified interface for students. Now, if a student is entering at grade 6 through 12, even though they may need some 3 to 5 content, they're still going to get their information within this more appropriate user interface, this more mature interface. All right, so let's look at what this looks like for students. So I'm going to sign out as the instructor, and I'm going to sign in as a student. And we were just talking about Haley. So I'm going to sign in as Haley. This is going to take me to a middle school style account, so you can see what Haley's course cards and information look like. Notice here her exact path reading, learning path, language arts, learning path, and math learning path are all available to her here. She also has some priority skill assignments down here. So you've got your standard master, the priority skill that a teacher has actually assigned to her. So I've got my basic learning path, and then those priority skills that have been assigned to me by an instructor that I have in my class. I can go and look at any rewards that I have earned as a student, my newest, all of the rewards that I have mastered, the different pieces of the program that I have mastered so far, showing me some really good progress for the student. I can keep some notes for myself if it's going to help me within my content. Notice we've got different areas. If I wanted to add some notes, I can simply add in that, maybe I was struck with something and I wanted to add in some information to remind me the next time I was in there working through that. You've got a notes section here for the student. And then you also have a message board. So Miss Sanchez is one of Haley's teachers. So here I have Miss Sanchez creating a message, sending out a new challenge for Haley, something for her to complete. The start date, the end date, if she wants to look at that, look at some more information about the challenge, it's going to show her what she is doing, what she's expected to do. She can also send a message to her teacher. So I've got the teachers that she has listed. All of these are various different portions of the account. So she can choose the teacher that she has available, give her subject, create a message, and send that message on to the teacher. She can then go on back home. Let's go ahead and drill in to one of the learning paths just for a minute. You can see kind of what's happening here and where she is. This is her progress in the learning path. She is in progress in a lesson right now. So if I get into this program, tune into the code. This is where Haley is working. You see the interactive nature of the program and what's available to students.
I've always wanted to learn how to play a musical instrument. Do you know how to play any instruments, Brick?
I can play lots of it.
Notice that I can go through this. It's very entertaining, for middle school students to be able to see the cartoon-like aspect of the program.
When reading a long word,
Skip along as the students. Remember, our goal is that they're really going through these lessons that they're completing. But I will tell you, several of these they could skip ahead.
Check out the.
And
here's another.
I can't wait.
Sorry, let me distract. But as they're moving through, it's going to not necessarily stop me from going ahead. So sometimes you will find a student say, oh, I have to redo that. Really important that we have conversations with students to make sure that they are actually completing the lessons and they're not just simply skipping ahead. Now, if I want to go back, it's notice here it's saying your work on this activity is going to be safe. So I'm going to go back to my learning path. It's going to take me right back to where I was. And then my practice option is going to pop up here as well. This is a
When you
section.
see a long word that doesn't look familiar, look for chunks, like a prefix at the beginning of.
So again, this is going to let me practice through these different
Take a look at this word. Here's another
like
long
you
word.
pay attention to the fact that I can, mute
It
this
has the
information if I need to, but students are going to hear this. It's going to be live and in person in class. So yes, earphones, I'm sorry, headsets for students. That type of resource is going to be something, especially if you're having students work in a large groups together, that you're going to want to be able to work on. Notice here I have notes again. Remember, I can talk or I can type out the notes that I have for myself. If I have some questions for dictionary information that I see in here, I want to look up a word. That dictionary is going to be very well for students. If I want to
Answer each question.
it's going to
How many word chunks make up this word?
section. And it's going to be my responsibility to then answer and go through the stages of these question and answer sessions. If I do not achieve on this, it's not really going to take me to a mastery section. So let's say that I just go through
Oops.
answer.
Try again. Remember that a prefix is a word chunk. Also, think about the importance of vowels in word chunks. Use that information to figure out the number of word chunks.
Maybe I then answer again.
Good job thinking it through. How many word chunks make up this word?
So as you can see, I have the opportunity to go through here. I'm going to have 2 out of 8. Notice my score is a half. I didn't get that first question correct right away. So it's not giving me full credit for that. Once I'm finished with this, I want to go back to my learning path. Notice here I have a progress check built in, but it is now locked. Because I started the practice, it's showing me that that's the next step, but I'm not going to be able to take that until I have completed this practice piece. So this is actually what it looks like for students on their learning path as they're working through these different lessons, practice activities, and just the different pieces that the students are working on. Okay. So you guys have gotten a lot of information from me today, but I always want to point you back to the teacher resources when we get in here. So your help and support pieces are all laid out here for you. Your ability to access them, use them. The next thing that I want to be able to take you guys through is how you are going to monitor student progress once they have started into their learning path. But if you are the kind of person who wants to jump ahead, who wants to look at this information and get started with yourself, you are certainly very welcome to do that. We have the Edmonton Learning Communities that you see here, so in that Help Center section, and your exact learning communities will allow you to view on-demand videos, get more information that will help you, support you as you move forward. But today, this is enough. enough for you guys to definitely get started. Have a better understanding about what is available to you and be able to use exact to help drive your student instruction. Again, my name is Leslie Ledford. If you need support, please reach out to your account administrators, and they will help point you in the right direction and get you in contact with me if needed. And we can set forth on a great plan for your school district, making sure that students are learning and growing and thriving this school year. Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you guys all again.